Deep within the shadows of human history lies a fascinating question. It's a question about our ancestral origins and, really, the profound mystery of human consciousness itself. We're often taught that the mind evolves in this slow, silent march out of the dark. But what if it didn't? What if the spark of self-reflection wasn't just some random mutation, but a deliberate chemical communion? Today, we're opening a rather unique archive of texts, weaving together biology, anthropology, and ancient myth to challenge our fundamental understanding of reality. We're going to examine what the philosopher Terence McKenna called the transcendent other, this unseen intelligence of nature, and the theories surrounding humanity's ancient connection to it. As we go through these concepts, I want you to keep something in mind. Consider how our modern struggles with identity, with suffering, might just be rooted in the loss of this ancient connection. Let's start at the evolutionary dawn with a concept that radically rewrites human history: symbiosis. Now, in biological terms, symbiosis is just a mutually beneficial relationship between different organisms. But the texts we're examining today suggest a very specific kind of cognitive symbiosis. The hypothesis is that early hominids ingesting psychoactive compounds wasn't a mere accident of foraging. Instead, it might have acted as the crucial catalyst for our physical and mental development, literally intertwining human consciousness with the chemistry of the earth. In his seminal book, Food of the Gods, Terence McKenna proposes that early humans essentially entered into a chemical handshake with their environment. He argued that consuming psilocybin mushrooms on the African plains gave us distinct adaptive advantages. At small doses, it noticeably increased visual acuity, which made early humans better hunters. Slightly larger doses, that stimulated sexual arousal, promoting reproduction and community bonding. McKenna's controversial theory argues that this symbiotic diet is what literally pulled us out of the animal mind, driving this incredibly rapid reorganization of the brain. But McKenna theorized that at the highest doses, these molecules did something far more miraculous. They specifically catalyzed the language-forming capacity of the brain. The profound, boundary-dissolving ecstasy of the mushroom experience allegedly forced early humans into utterance. Language, in this altered state, became an unseen, linguistic objectification of our collective imagination. It suggests our ancestors didn't just invent words. They experienced a kind of synesthesia where they saw sound and spoke visions, translating the raw matter of experience right into the miracle of articulated speech. And this profound symbiotic theory, it doesn't just stop on the primordial planes. As early humans migrated and settled, the sources argue they carried these primal roots with them directly into antiquity. They embedded this plant-based wisdom deep into the very foundations of Western civilization, desperately seeking to maintain that ancient chemical connection to the world around them. We find a perfect example of this in the cavernous shadows of ancient Greece with the Eleusinian Mysteries. For centuries, the ultimate revelation of this secret society was fiercely concealed from the uninitiated. But as researchers R. Gordon Wasson and Albert Hofmann later uncovered, the ancient Greeks likely hid the ingredients for a mind-altering ergot-based potion inside their ritual vessels. You can see the echoes of this in surviving artifacts like the sacred kiste, the cylindrical basket borne by the caryatids, and the multi-cupped kernels vessel. Wasson and Hofmann theorized these specific objects were used to prepare and induce an ecstatic, visionary enlightenment. This sacred potion was known as the kykeon. You might know the central myth of Eleusis, the story of Demeter and the sudden abduction of her daughter Persephone into the underworld. Well, according to these researchers, that wasn't merely a fairy tale. It was actually a coded ethnobotanical map. They theorized that the abduction was an allegory for a drug-induced trance. It was a profound, completely incommunicable revelation about the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, triggered by the hallucinogen hidden in the grain. What we're uncovering here is a recurring pattern: humanity constantly seeking external chemical catalysts to understand our place in the universe. We see this overarching narrative stretching seamlessly from the ancient Mediterranean ergot all the way to the deep Amazon, where indigenous shamans have long communed with the ayahuasca vine. Through these practices, they seek what can be called the vital principle, the ultimate source of the plant teacher's knowledge. Anthropologist Jeremy Narby spent years deeply investigating the hallucinatory knowledge of Western Amazonia. He observed that indigenous shamans utilize intense defocusing techniques, like ayahuasca ingestion or prolonged fasting, to alter their consciousness. But rather than dismissing these visions as mere tricks of the mind, Narby hypothesized something much bigger. He suggested they aren't simply hallucinating. They are potentially communicating directly with an intelligent and microscopic reality that permeates all living things.
Across the globe, from the Amazon to the ancient Aboriginal paintings of Australia, shamans consistently describe encounters with twin, entwined serpents of light. Narby concluded that this cosmic serpent is a literal, visual manifestation of the double helix of DNA. It's a radical claim, but it implies that these ancient cultures, unburdened by the fragmented rationality of the West, have somehow been accessing consciousness at the very molecular origins of life itself. So, if the deep jungle allows us to commune with the microscopic code of life, what happens when we shrink our focus even further? What happens when we bypass the external plant world entirely and peer directly into the center of the human brain? Because deep within us, past the cortex and the conscious mind, lies the tiny, pinecone-shaped pineal gland. It's right here that we find DMT, or dimethyltryptamine. Dr. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking clinical research revealed that this incredibly powerful psychedelic is not just found in Amazonian vines or exotic plants. It is produced endogenously, meaning naturally, by the human brain. Strassman hypothesized that DMT acts as a spirit molecule. In his view, this internal chemical catalyst facilitates the soul's movement in and out of the physical body during the absolute most pivotal moments of our biological existence: birth, deep mystical states, and eventually death. When volunteers in Strassman's DEA-approved study were intravenously injected with DMT, their experiences were terrifyingly profound and remarkably consistent. They recounted near-death experiences and encounters with what they described as intelligent, non-human presences. They felt the absolute departure of the life force from their physical bodies, describing realms that were, in their own words, more real than real, and completely beyond the limits of human language to adequately describe. These intense molecular revelations pull us directly into the modern clinical present. As author Michael Pollan has documented in his extensive research, modern science is now aggressively researching psychedelics, effectively attempting to rediscover what these texts suggest our archaic ancestors already knew. But the goal of this modern scientific renaissance isn't just radical exploration or philosophy. It is explicitly aimed at curing modern, everyday human suffering. Researchers are finding that it isn't strictly the pharmacological effect of the drug that heals, but rather the profound mental experience it triggers. According to Pollan's synthesis, psychedelics act as a biological control-alt-delete. They possess what scientists call an egolytic effect, meaning they have the power to temporarily silence that rigid, controlling mental construct we call the ego. By shutting down the default mode network in the brain, they open up a vital, albeit temporary, window of unprecedented mental flexibility. This process is known as ego dissolution. Think about how this applies to our daily lives for a moment. So much of modern human suffering, whether it's addiction, severe depression, or the terror of our own mortality, stems from our addiction to a pattern of thinking where the self is locked at the very center of the universe. By erasing the boundaries between subject and object, between the self and the outside world, these compounds theoretically allow us to let go of our rigid models of reality. They offer a chance to reconnect to the unified, transcendent web of existence that we've been cut off from. Which leaves us staring into the dark, confronting a truth that challenges the very foundation of who we think we are. If consciousness can be so drastically altered at the molecular level, if the history of our mind is inextricably woven with the chemistry of the earth, and if your ego is merely a biological illusion, masking a vast, symbiotic intelligence, who is actually experiencing your life?